Hey, SpeakEasy Podcast listeners. This is your host, Altovise, your voice manager. I unmute the voice of women who are ready to speak up about what has kept her silent for way too long. Listen, it's been a long time. Hey, I shouldn't have listened. I know, guys. I know it hasn't really been that long, but it always feels like it is. I love being able to bring the discussions to you guys. That I've been able to bring over these last 4 years, guys, 4 years. But I want to say that when it comes to being a bridge, man, there are so many things to talk about, especially now. We think about what the bridges that are in our family, what they do for our bloodline. We think about the bridges at our job or in our business, what they do for the success of our business. But we also have to look at our place on that bridge or as that bridge. And so with that being said, I'm excited about my guest for today. Hello, Keyonna. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am
Great.
excited about this conversation today because I know that being a bridge was one of the things in your bio and it stood out so much for me. With that being said, let the studio audience know a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Okay, well, the short version of it is I'm an entrepreneur, a conversationalist, an author, creative director. But as you mentioned, I have for years been a bridge, both in personally in my family, as well as in business and ministry. So that's the short version of it.
Great place to start because so I know how I feel about bridges, but Keyonna, tell us how you feel about bridges and why you chose a bridge to be one of the descriptions you use in your bio.
As a bridge, it's very, very important to have a person as a liaison, especially right now. There's a lot of things going on at this time. People don't know where to go, who to turn to, who to talk to, a lot of unanswered questions, and connecting individuals with other like-minded individuals. So that's important too. When you get that, come together or have that bridge, it needs to be someone who is connecting two entities with other like-minded entities. And so that's what I look for when I'm bridging people together. What does this person have, the gifts, the talents, and how can they come together? Or has this person gone through something that this one is going through, and they can help them get through that. So that's what the bridge is about.
Love it. So being the bridge as being the greatest resource that, you can be for somebody else, which is something that I think a lot of people have moved away from. There have been a lot of people who they feel as though being the bridge is draining or that they've become overwhelmed by being the bridge. So can you speak to that a little bit?
It can become a little overwhelming, especially if you have multiple entities pulling from you. So, but that's why as a bridge, you need a bridge too. You have to have someone, a mentor, someone else that you can talk to. And that's what I discovered early on, or what I didn't discover early on. I was the go-to person, even as a teenager. Everyone was pulling for me, coming to me for advice, friends, family. And I'm like, who do I turn to? And it might sound a little weird, but I said, well, if they're coming to me, I can't go to them for help, because why would I go to them for help if they're coming to me for help? So how can they help me? But that's not necessarily the case. But I did discover that you do need, especially when you're in that position as a bridge, you need someone that you can talk to and who can help to strengthen and help to renew and re-energize you as well.
I love that. Who supports the supporter?
Exactly. Exactly.
It's definitely necessary and needed. So now, as an author, tell us a little bit about the book.
Okay, so the book is very interesting. I was very private growing up. My grandmother would say sneaky. She's 94 years old. She used to say I was sneaky. I say private. She says sneaky. And I've gone through a lot, even at 2 when my mom was murdered, with me present in the home and not meeting my dad until I was 16 years old. And I met my dad through my son's father, introduced me to my own dad. That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. And it's just been a lot of things. And as I said, I was one who, I was like a loner. I had friends, but I was a loner too, if that makes sense. I could do a lot of things alone. I would go to the movies. I could go out to eat. My grandmother said she would never do that alone. Like she doesn't, she cares
Yeah,
what
I
other
think it
people
was really taboo for that generation. They're just
think.
like,
Yeah. Yeah, but I have to have time of solitude. So this book actually was conceived 10 years ago. I was going through a lot of things, both personally and business, a lot of deaths. Business had down spiraled. I left and went to Atlanta, came back to California. I'm like, okay, well, what am I doing? I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have any direction. And it was really time for me to self-reflect. And the first thing I did was I wrote down how many jobs I've had ever, period. And it was more than my age. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. So from then I was on a pursuit to purpose. And it was, well, what does that look like? I have a very colorful background in the fashion and entertainment industries. I've dabbed into education. I could relate to the youth. And so there was just so many different areas that I could relate to. Or entities and people that I could relate to, but I had to, I realized that I had a lot of baggage while I was out helping other people unpack theirs or helping them get further. I had my own. And so for the first time as a single mom raising 3 sons, and my oldest was about 13, 14 when this happened and they went with their dad, I was able to be alone and again do that self-reflection. And so what I did in that, I started unpacking these bags. And now not everyone will have 10 years to unpack, the bags. I was privileged to have that, but literally my book is called Unpacked Baggage, Getting to Know Keyonna Cox from A to Z, literally all the 26 letters of the alphabet. And that's not even an exhaustive list. Some of them I had multiple words or bags that I could have unpacked under that. But yeah, it's 26 bags that I had to unpack. That honestly, I didn't even know that existed. I really didn't. I didn't even know that they exist. And that's a lot of people. They're so busy, pursuing career, whatever it is, people aren't able to see what it is, the underlying issue, the root cause, which you really have to get to instead of the surface. A lot of people are trying to attack the surface, and it's like, no, 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 no. What is that root? Because until you get to the root cause, you won't be able to, you won't be able to get to that place of wholeness in whatever areas that you need to unpack. Because we all have bags. Some have more than others, but we all have things that we are going through. And again, in that, definitely need to get around people who have gone through what you've gone through and overcome to help you get through that.
I love that you said that we have the bags that need to be unpacked, because first and foremost, it reminded me of a few years back when I was going through a closet and I found a bag full of books, notebooks with poetry in it, stories, all types of notes, all types of stuff. And I said, the bag was hidden in the closet. And I think in life and in business, a lot of times we'll pack the bag and, somebody better catch this. We'll pack the bag and put it to the side.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And never go back into the bag, not realizing that even though it may be hard for us to face it, sometimes what's inside the bag is actually the tools we need to create the bridge.
Yes, yes, yes. And Joyce Meyer has a saying, things buried alive is still alive. And that's just like sweeping things under the rug. A lot of people, especially when it comes to family issues, they like to sweep it under the rug, and you can't, you have to address it. I was talking to my grandmother the other day, and time heals everything. I said, Grandma, that's not 100% accurate. It has to be addressed. Now, you may have to take out some time for some people to cool off, and it may not be the time to approach certain people, but it's not time alone that heals things. You have to be ready for that change. You have to be willing for change, and which is the first step, because not everybody is ready. So if you're not ready, then you won't be able to unpack the bags either.
Ooh, that part.
Yeah.
Ooh, because true indeed, if you go and try to unpack that bag and you're not ready, it can cause more harm than good. It can
Yes.
definitely cause more harm. I love this Speakeasy Podcast listeners, because again, when and this is coming from someone who's dealt with coach hurt, who's dealt with failed things, launching failed things in my business, who's lost thousands and thousands of dollars. And yes, I say lost.
Mm-hmm.
And who found myself, going and looking back now, I'm like, oh, I should have known better. I found at one point, maybe about 2 years ago, where all of those experiences that I had had in business that were bad, I was literally putting them in a bag. And the problem comes in is we're dragging the bag with us into new experiences.
And relationships.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. And
yes.
so Speakeasy Podcast listeners, this is why this topic is such an important one, because your business is a bridge. The tools you need are in that bag that you keep packing and putting away. The information that your clients need is in that bag. The information that you need to be the success that you're attempting to be is in that bag. And, having that, because it does take a boldness to decide that you're going to go through that bag. It also takes some help. So let's talk about it. Because one of the things we talk about is, listen, if therapy is needed in more instances than not, and we still have this stigma against therapy.
Yes. Oh, this was just a conversation an hour and a half ago. And helping people to understand the difference between therapy, counseling, and life coaching. So yeah, especially in the brown, Black community, when it comes to therapy, that's like taboo. I was speaking with a friend of mine yesterday, and he's really going through something. And we talked about that too. Like, in the Black community, it's just taboo for therapy, but that's why there's a lot of suicide rates. Even with DMX, I got the opportunity to meet him, and a very sweet soul. But for me, and this is my personal opinion about it, is that he needed a certain type of support system around him. And Russell Simmons mentioned it on Instagram that we weren't there for him. And it's not good to suppress, because when you suppress, you look for other things to cope. And so the drugs was the coping mechanism. And I'm speaking from that because I started drinking alcohol at 12 years old. I didn't know what was going on, what I was suppressing at that time. Was it my mom's death, my dad not being around, other things that were going on? What was I suppressing from 12 to 25 by drinking alcohol? And discovering that that's what it was. I was suppressing all of these things that I had gone through, which was a lot even as a teenager. So, but yeah, you definitely have to go out and seek help. Like my first counseling session, it was supposed to be an hour. It ended up being 3 hours. first time I ever spoke to anyone about the things that I had gone through, even not even close friends. And this guy, he sat and listened. Like, he said nothing. He let me just go for 3 hours. And that was the first step, just that weight that was lifted off of me, from sharing with him that had been bottled up inside of me for years. And yeah, that's dangerous, to hold all of that in there, suppressing that. That's why people are angry, irritable, different things are disease, because it's being bottled up for years.
One of the things that you hit on that I think SpeakEasy podcast listeners, I want to make sure that we highlight is that, yes, there is a difference between life coaching and therapy. Mm-hmm. And what people did was they felt like if I could go to a life coach could help me fix my life, right? Mm-hmm. But the life coach is not trained to handle what a therapist can handle. And this is somebody who's coming from the psychological and the psychology field. That's my field of study. This is someone who I've been in kinship care. I know the social work system. I know, from being on, being kinship care and going through that system, and my mother doing foster care when I was younger. And so there is so much that you get from counseling that, from a counselor or a therapist that you will not get from a life coach. And unfortunately, life coaching had a big boom in about 2015, 2016. Mm-hmm. And everyone went and was chasing down this opportunity to be able to say, I'm a life coach. And it hurt people because people said, well, I can just go to a life coach instead of a therapist. That's not how any of this goes. And I even had to have discussions with, I've had discussions with my personal clients and said, I know, because I've taken the courses, because I've done the work, I know what point I can take you to and what point I'm going to tell you to go get counseling. Mm-hmm. I have phone numbers that I will go and I will send you to whoever you need to talk to. But when somebody's coming into life coaching, they don't have that. They don't have that same resource pool. And so it's kind of scary. It really is, because we are, you said it, we're doing people a disservice. We're an injustice is being, made because there are some who are life coaches who are scared to tell people that they need therapy. Because I don't want the person to be mad at me. I don't want to lose a client.
Yeah, well, you mentioned something as well, too. You said, where there's a point where you say, hey, this person needs more. I can't do it. I can't take them any further. And so that's something too. I don't like formulas, like the 1, 2, 3 steps, formalizing things, one size fits all, because it's not. One thing that may work for one person does not necessarily mean it'll work for the other one. So yeah, like even you got like there are mental illnesses. And interesting, I had another a pre-interview for another interview that I'm doing for another podcast. But we talked about that this morning too, where you have the mental illness, where people would think some years ago, okay, you see someone on the street, they have a mental illness, or it's drugs, alcohol, there's something going on there. But now you have more of like mental depression. So a lot of people are depressed. And so those are handled separately. Those are two different entities. Someone who went to war and got PTSD versus someone who's depressed. Maybe they lost their job, or they're going through a divorce, or, you can't handle it the same. And I believe, I know that that's why a lot of things going on right now is shaky, and people are looking for answers. They're looking for solutions, but because it's been a one size fits all, it hasn't been able to be resolved. And I was invited by a government entity in a state to assist them with alleviating an issue that they had. He said for over 16 years as a director, and it's gotten worse. And so when I asked him, well, show me, what have you guys been doing? And when he told me, I said, okay, that's exactly why it's not working, because you're taking these two different situations and trying to resolve it the same way, and it's not the same answer. Even if you have the same goal, and I'm an MBA fanatic, so I like to use this as an example. You have the goal is to get to the NBA for the players, those who play basketball. You have one who may get drafted out of high school, but the other one gets drafted out of college. The destination is the same, but there was two different processes. One got faster by going through, it was accelerated. The other one may need a little bit more time. So if we can learn to individualize instead of putting it in one box and formalizing, and yes, you do these 1, 2, 3 steps, everyone do these 1, 2, 3, and then it'll work for you. No, that's not realistic. But it's what's been going on. It's what's been happening for many years. But that's why it's a lot of confusion going on right now within people, and people are looking for answers, and they're looking for help.
Most definitely. I think even with we heard about all of the things that went on with DMX. We knew about, all of the trauma. We knew about the things that he went through. And it's interesting because people forget that people can function in their dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see him showing up at the shows. We see him praying for other people. Mm-hmm. And we think it cancels out whatever he's going through.
Exactly. And I was looking at an IG video from an actor who he was a guest on the show. And this actor said, he just loved working with him. He was funny, and just the humor and all that he was going through, he didn't express it. But that's not a good thing. He suppressed it. And look what happened. And as I said, it just, I was just that day that he passed away, I was very bothered, especially having countering him, and just the conversation that we had, and knowing his heart, but not having that proper, support system, or who do I turn to? And then sometimes you and that's why you don't just need a lot of yes people around you either. You need someone who's going to tell the truth, but not judgmental either. So there has to be a balance, and not everybody has that. They don't know where to go, but that's why the bridge. And that's why, as I said, I'm always looking to see who can I connect. And I have someone today, they're looking for therapy or counseling. And I know several, but I'm like, who would be the best for this particular entity? Not just that one, but which one? Because I know more than one. And so I said, I believe this one would be, because they have very similar experiences that they've gone through, different challenges, and this person has overcome areas that this other person is looking to overcome. So that's very important, because I'm gonna be honest, the things that I've gone through, if it was like, if you haven't gone through it, I don't want your advice, because you can only tell me what you've heard secondhand. I need somebody who has actually experienced, because that's where the empathy comes in. Yeah, the understanding of, I know what you're going through. I know what you're going through. I've been through that, and this is how I did it. And again, it might not be the same exact process, but a little more understanding. And you definitely have to have the proper support system.
Oh my goodness. SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, I hope you've been tuning in and listening in. because this goes beyond just doing business. It goes beyond, because when we look at DMX, we saw he was able to still do business. We saw, even with everything that was going on, he's still showing up for show. He just finished an album. And to know that you can still, again, be able to function even in the midst of the dysfunction, it is very real. And you never want to get to that point. Realize where your bridges are, and access them and use them. Yes. I think that's the big elephant in the room, is that a lot of times we will know that we have bridges, but we won't walk over them. We won't go to where we have access to them. For many different reasons, people have their own reservations about why they don't ask for help. And if you learn nothing else from this episode, seek the help that you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seek
I totally agree. I totally agree. Yes.
I love that. So with that being said, this has been an amazing episode. Man, we could keep talking for forever.
I know.
The time like flew by on this one, guys. Keyonna, let the studio audience know how they can get the book, where they can find you at online, and also how to reach out to you if they have some questions and they need some more feedback.
Okay, so for the book, the website is www.unpackedbaggage.com. And so the book will be released June 8th, 2021. However, it's available for pre-order now. So you can go on pre-order. That just launched on Friday, this past Friday. And also too, I don't know if you recognize this tie and this bow tie. This is tie bow. It's a luxury tie and accessories brand for both women and men. And so with that, www.theoriginaltieBow.com. And again, tie bow is bow tie spelled backwards. I can be reached on LinkedIn. Instagram, I'm not that active yet on Instagram, you guys. I actually just I deactivated Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, which at that time, that's just what I did about a year and a half ago. So I'm just getting back on the platforms. I needed that time of solitude, but for some reason I didn't delete LinkedIn. That was the only one. So LinkedIn as well. So yeah, you can definitely inbox me either or on unpackbaggage.com. There's a way to contact me there. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Keyonna Cox, and that's my Instagram too. So I do check it, and I will go back to you at my earliest convenience.
I think LinkedIn is like the least messy of all the social media.
Yes.
It's like LinkedIn, you're kind of safe with that one.
Yes.
So I can understand you staying on that one as opposed to the rest. Trust and believe. I shut down my Twitter. I shut down Twitter, TikTok. And I think right now I'm just like, I pulled away from Facebook, so I'm not as active on there. And yeah, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
A lot. And just the information and the videos and the time to look through, you can get inundated with all of that information and stories and resource. Yeah, it's a lot. So,
yes, indeed. SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, remember that this is all for you. It's all for you. Okay, I ain't gonna do that for y'all, but y'all know I gotta give you a little snippet of a song every episode. It is all for you, because without the SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, there would be no SpeakEasy Podcast. I appreciate and value your time. Thank you for sharing out the episode. Thank you for your reviews. You can leave one on your favorite podcasting platform. Also, make sure that you connect Altovise Unmuted over on Instagram. I would love to hear your feedback on this particular episode. With that being said, this is your host, Altovise Pelzer. And until next time, don't forget, to press it out. See ya.